Peter, I'm going to quickly cut across to Shiv Arur, also joining us, very closely watching the BRICS Summit. Shiv, we see this is a great photo op, Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping, that handshake, a very brief chat before both of them went on to assume their chairs. But will this really translate into a structured bilateral talk between the two nations, which has been lacking for at least 4 years now?
Well, Nabila, first off, a small clarification. There's no handshake that was at least visible in the video, and there's no information to suggest that the two leaders actually shook hands, which would, send out a completely different signal. So until we have that picture, we're not going to say that. But you're right. The fact that the two of them interacted, does suggest that there is, some kind of breaking of ice between the two leaders. But given that much of what's happening in BRICS, as Peter said, is happening behind closed doors, there's no, substantive way of figuring out just what, kind of interaction has happened between these two leaders. The suspense over a possible bilateral continues to exist. Remember, the Indian Prime Minister is leaving for Greece tomorrow, and from there he's going to make his way to Bengaluru directly for the Chandrayaan 3 celebration with ISRO. But while he is at BRICS, the photo ops are, speaking loud. All the right noises are being made about the expansion of BRICS. The looming G20 adds its own flavor to India's aura of leadership and the global south. But the fact that India is very, very keen to see some kind of forward movement with China over the biggest military standoff that has existed for the last 3 years and counting now is something that compels us to read a great deal even to the smallest video clips. That's the reason why this brief interaction between the Indian Prime Minister and Xi Jinping, we don't know what the Prime Minister is saying. He's got his hand up. What exactly is it? Is it, did this conversation lead in from some other point? Did Xi Jinping say something to which the Indian Prime Minister was responding to? Could two world leaders possibly have something substantive to say to each other while they're walking from their chairs to another part of the room? These are all tantalizing questions right now. But let's remember that the India-China issue is a big festering one. The world is looking at it. These are the two largest countries in the world in terms of population. They've got the world's two largest standing armies. Both are nuclear powers. They've got, a dispute that's currently, part of a huge military standoff in eastern Ladakh. They're warring over issues in the South China Sea, the Indian Ocean region, etc. So the India-China issue has a bearing on the security of the entire world. So this little image of Modi and Xi actually resonates, across the security and safety spectrum of not just India and China, Nabila, but the entire world. And I have to, only conjecture that much of what happens today, even behind closed doors, is going to come up when the G20 begins a few weeks from now.
19 rounds of military-level talks between the two nations have by far failed. At least China has not lived up to their word, Shiv. And this, at a time, we can't expect Prime Minister Modi to really offer a handshake. And that's precisely what you said. We don't see a handshake there, but we do see exchange of words. We do see Xi Jinping making that effort to say something to Prime Minister Modi. It came from his side, and that's clear from that visual here that Xi Jinping was the one who initiated that talk with Prime Minister Modi. Modi was right ahead of Xi Jinping while Xi said something to Modi. Modi responded, and they went on to assume their chairs. But nothing substantial when it comes to an actual bilateral talk between the two nations. In fact, India, we believe, Prime Minister Modi has about 5 bilateral meetings set up today, while 3 nations are already known: Ethiopia, Mozambique and Iran. These are bilateral talks that they're going to have with these nations, but the 2 other nations and who those representatives are still unclear. But what we see here is a clear chat between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping ahead of Xi also coming down to India, to Delhi, to be part of the G20 meeting. Peter is also with us. Peter, give us a sense of China's side or any word on whether China is mulling over holding a bilateral talk with India at the BRICS Summit, on the sidelines of BRICS Summit.
Yeah, look, there was that word from the Chinese ambassador to South Africa that they would be engaged with Indian officials on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit. So maybe one of those bilateral engagements that was not given a specific name of a country, that time may be given to the Chinese, depending on President Xi's schedule. We don't know his official schedule for today, so we're not quite sure what engagements he's got and what other bilaterals that he's got, if any. But politically, as you guys have just mentioned, that handshake is significant. It's a significant time. We saw on Tuesday night, they were at a banquet together, but they didn't stand next to each other. And all the family photographs, as they have been come to known, we never saw a photograph of the two of them together, which further fuels speculation that this may not happen. It may not be the right time and the right place for the two leaders to meet. But obviously, that G20 summit coming up as well. So maybe this is just planting a seed. It may not have to be a long engagement between the two. Maybe if they just meet for an hour or so, politically, it's important for both of them. And just looking at those visuals of Xi, just saying a few words to Prime Minister Modi may lead to something bigger, albeit it's not significant now, leading into the G20. So that's, in terms of the Chinese officials, they're quite mum in terms of, I just saw maybe an hour ago, Xi's car arriving here in Santon amidst a huge cavalcade. So, they're hoping that all is well and that the two countries can actually get together and have that conversation that everyone's asking for.
All right. Of course, that's precisely what India is very eager to know, if at all there's going to be a meeting between the two on the sidelines of BRICS Summit. And this image really speaks for a lot. There is a certain positioning we see from both sides, but will they be really forthcoming to deal with it formally through a bilateral talk? Let's see what happens. Thanks very much, Peter and Shiv, for joining us on that.